Hello, dear aspirants. This is Shahzaib joined you again in the Gender Studies lecture series. In my previous lectures, I discussed the Women in Development approach in detail, and then I discussed the Women and Development approach in Gender Studies. And these two concepts were crucial when it comes to the participation of women in development process of a nation. So today we shall discuss in detail the Gender and Development, the GAD approach in Gender Studies. So in this topic, we shall discuss its features, the theoretical basis, and the institutional, support to this concept, the GAD approach in gender studies. So we begin with the concept of GAD approach. The GAD approach emphasizes the importance of understanding and addressing the power relations between men and women. The second point of the GAD approach is that the feminist scholars and activists argue that development should not only focus on women but also address the broader social, economic, and political structures that perpetuate gender inequalities in a nation. The GAD considers how other social categories such as class, race, ethnicity, age intersects with gender to produce different experiences of oppression or privilege. The GAD approach encourages the participation of both genders in society. The second aspect of this topic is the origin of GAD approach. We shall discuss it in detail here. The gender and development approach is in gender studies emerged in late 1980s and 90s as a response to earlier approaches, women in development and women and development, as I earlier mentioned. The gender and development approach was heavily influenced by feminist theories, particularly those that emphasize the importance of understanding and addressing the power relation between men and women. It emerged with the genesis of gender studies discipline in 1990. And here we are going to discuss the proponents of gender and development approach in detail in gender studies in our subsequent headings. So we begin with the Maratha Nosbium, and she is widely known for her work on GAD approach, though more widely known for her capabilities approach. Nosbium's work intersects with GAD in addressing the broader socioeconomic inequalities that impact women. The second overarching personality, that is Amartya Sen. So his work on capabilities and development has influenced the GAD approach by emphasizing the importance of expanding women's capabilities and choices. So this is only possible to eliminate barriers, both social and biological. The third proponent of GAD approach is Caroline M. Elliott, known for her work on feminist theory and development, and she contributes to understanding gender relations in the context of development. She further argues that male dominates all walks of development. So, after discussing the proponents, we are going to discuss the important features of gender and development GAD approach in detail in our subsequent headings. The first and foremost feature of GAD approach is that it focuses on social relations and power dynamics. The GAD approach emphasizes the importance of understanding the social relations between men and women, focusing on power dynamics, roles, responsibilities, and access to resources. All means of development are influenced by men. So this is a very important concept that we should see the gender relations, dividing them into the holding of power, the responsibilities, and the resources. Who hold the resources more, whether it is a man or women. Our second very important concept in GAD approach, that's very fascinating concept given by Kimberly Cronshaw. The approach is intersectionality. The GAD takes into account how various identities such as race, class, ethnicity, and sexuality intersects with gender, leading to different experiences and inequalities. For example, a GAD approach might analyze how poor rural women of minority ethnic group face multiple layers of discrimination in accessing health care compared to urban women of a dominant ethnic group. So this is a very striking concept in gender studies. The third important aspect of GAD approach, that it seeks transformative change in society. So how it wants to seek the transformative change? The approach seeks not just to include women in development, but to transform the structures that cause gender inequalities. So its particular focus is all the genders in society. This involves the challenging and changing laws, policies, and cultural norms. For example, in the context of employment, GAD would advocate for changes in labor laws that ensure equal pay for equal work and promote work environment free from gender-based discrimination and harassment. Another important aspect of a GAD approach is a participatory approach, that all genders should participate. So we discuss in detail the GAD. The gender and development emphasizes the importance of involving both women and men in the planning, implementation, and evaluation of development program. It seeks to ensure that all voices are heard, especially those of marginalized group. For example, in designing a community health program of GAD approach would involve women, men from different socioeconomic backgrounds in discussions to ensure that program addresses their specific health needs. So this is a participatory approach which is supported by GAD approach. The socially constructed gender roles. This is another feature and striking aspect of GAD approach. So GAD critiques the socially constructed roles assigned to men and women, recognizing that these roles are not natural but created and maintained by society. It aims to deconstruct these roles to achieve gender equality. For example, in many societies, women are primarily responsible for caregiving and domestic work. GAD would address the need to redistribute these roles more equitably between men and women, such as through policies that promote paternity leave. So another aspect of GAD approach is to focus on empowerment not just of women but of all the marginalized the gender roles, gender identities, whether it is a man or women. So GAD emphasizes empowering women and marginalized groups by increasing their access to resources, opportunities, and decision-making power. For example, microfinance programs that provide loans to women can empower them economically, enabling them to start their own business to contribute to the welfare of not only community but country, and to gain greater autonomy in their personal and social life. So another aspect of GAD approach is to ensure the long-term perspective. So the long-term perspective, what does it mean by GAD? The gender in development focuses on sustainable long-term changes rather than quick fixes. It recognizes that achieving gender equality requires ongoing effort and structural change. For example, educational programs that challenge gender stereotypes from an early age aim to create a future generation that values gender equality, leading to a long-term societal change. So this is a long-term perspective emphasized by the GAD approach. Now we are going to discuss the application of different theories relating to gender and development approach in detail in our subsequent headings. The first and foremost theory we are going to discuss is a social constructivism. What we mean by social constructivism? Social constructivism is a theory that gender roles and identities are not biologically determined but are socially constructed. So when it comes to gender and development approach, discuss this social constructivism. So GAD uses this theory to challenge traditional gender roles and advocate for deconstruction of these roles. For example, it questions why women are often relegated to caregiving roles and argues that such roles are a result of social norms and not natural predispositions. And the second important theory in this regard is the feminist theory. This is also an important theory related to GAD approach. The feminist theory is central to gender and development approach, providing the critical lens through which gender inequalities are analyzed. The gender and development approach draws heavily from feminist theory, particularly its focus on patriarchy and the systemic nature of gender oppression. So GAD seeks to dismantle patriarchal structures in society that limit women's rights and opportunities, and advocating for policies that promote gender equality. So this is the main stance of feminist theory in GAD approach. And another important theory that we have discussed already is concept in the previous headings, that is intersectionality. This we can treat it as a theory that was given by Kimberly Crenshaw. The intersectionality, a concept developed by Kimberly Crenshaw, refers to the interconnected nature of social categories such as race, class, gender, and sexuality. So, GAD incorporates intersectionality to understand how gender inequality is compounded by other forms of oppression. This helps in developing in more nuanced and effective strategies that address the needs of diverse groups of women and men. So, this is very important concept in gender and development approach. So, another important theory, that is power relations theory in gender and development approach. The power relations theory explores how power is distributed and exercised within societies and how this affects social relationships, including those related to gender. So, GADE focuses on changing power relations at both macro, institutional, and micro individual level. For example, it might examine how women's lack of power in household decision making affects their access to resources and opportunities. So these were the important theories. Another theory, that is post-colonial theory, that is the very important theory and related to gender and development concept in gender studies. The post-colonial theory, criticizes the legacy of colonialism and how it has shaped contemporary global inequalities, including those related to gender. So GADE is informed by post-colonial critiques that question the universality of Western feminist models and advocates for context-specific approaches to gender equality. It recognizes that development interventions must be culturally sensitive and responsive to local needs. And another theory, that is development theory. So this is also an important theory in when it comes to discussing the gender and development concept in gender studies. So development theory encompasses various perspectives on how societies progress economically, socially, and politically. So gender and development criticizes traditional development theories for ignoring gender issues and emphasizes that development should be understood as a process that involves both men and women equally. It promotes the idea that gender equality is a prerequisite for sustainable development of a country. So this is very important theory. And another important theory is the critical theory. So this is also an important theory in gender and development concept. We will discuss in detail. The critical theory involves the questioning and challenging the dominant ideologies and power structures that maintain inequality and oppression in a society. So gender and development concept and approach uses critical theory to question the underlying assumptions of traditional development practices, to advocate for transformative approaches that address the root causes of gender inequality in a society. It seeks to empower marginalized groups by challenging the status quo of a society. So these were the theories. Now we are going to discuss the institutional support to gender and development approach in gender studies. We begin with gender mainstreaming. This is one of the, we can treat it as an institution. So gender mainstreaming is a process of assessing the implications for women and men of any planned action, including legislation, policies, and programs. Here we are going to discuss the example of countries. That the institutional example is of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. The World Bank have adopted gender mainstreaming strategies that require all development projects and policies to consider gender implications. This includes the conducting gender impact assessment and ensuring that both women and men are equally facilitated. So another important institutional support to GAD concept is national gender policies. So this is very important concept in gender studies. So many countries such as Rwanda, Sweden have implemented national gender policies that mandate gender equality in all public policies and programs. And these policies often include quotas for women in political representation and equal pay laws and anti-discrimination measures. That the national gender policies are very important, because when it comes to public policy, that has a huge impact on different roles of gender in society. So third institutions, we are going to discuss the women's ministries and gender equality bodies. So these bodies are in vogue in different countries. So countries like Philippines and South Africa have established dedicated ministries for gender equality or women's affairs. These ministries coordinate national efforts to advance women's rights, support gender equality initiatives, and monitor compliance with international gender commitments. So, such ministries and gender equality bodies are in vogue almost in all the members of United Nations organizations, but their effectiveness is questionable. So another institutional support to the GAD approach is international conventions and agreements relating to gender and their roles. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CIDA. This is very important concept. Adopted by the United Nations in 1979, is a key international treaty that obligates countries to eliminate gender discrimination and promote women's rights. Countries that ratify CIDA are required to report regularly on their progress and implementing its provisions, and Pakistan is also the member of this treaty. So another institutional initiative globally to promote the GAD approach is donor agencies and international financial institutions. The World Bank's Gender Action Plan promotes gender equality as a core development objective and integrates gender analysis into its projects and funding decisions. Similarly, the bilateral aid agencies like USAID, it's a United States aid for international development, and UK's DFID have specific gender strategies that guide their development assistance. And these international financial organizations are working on the promotion of women. And the third institutional initiative that promote the gender and development approach is the education and research institutions. Universities and think tanks, different think tanks on educational level and even on social level, often collaborate with governments and non-government organizations to produce gender disaggregated data, conduct impact assessments, and provide training on gender analysis. So this research informs policies and practices that promote gender equality. Because the educational institutes have a very profound role in this regard. So another institutional aspect we are going to discuss when it comes to discuss the gender and development approach, the legal and judicial system. The legal reforms in countries like India, Pakistan, and countless other countries which have introduced stricter penalties for gender-based violence and improved women's access to justice reflect the influence of gender and development approach in transforming institutional frameworks, because the legal safety for women is very important. So Pakistan introduced many laws, harassment law in 2010, anti-harassment law, and the anti-honor killing law in 2016. You can quote a number of laws in this regard. So discussing the international organizations, so they have also a key role in promoting the gender and development approach across the globe. So international organizations such as the United Nations, World Health Organizations (WHO), and International Labour Organizations (ILO), it's a very important organization, play a significant role in setting global gender equality standards and providing platforms for advocacy and coordination. UN Women, established in 2010, a specialized UN agency dedicated to gender equality and empowerment of women. It supports member states implementing gender-sensitive policies and provide opportunities for the equal participation of genders in the development. So making a critical appraisal of gender and development approach. So there is a less criticism on gender and development approach as compared to the previous two approaches, the WID and WADE approach. So despite that, the GAD, gender and development, can sometimes be criticized for its focus on women at the expense of fully integrating complexities of intersecting identities such as race, class, and sexuality. It ignores the historical factors like colonialism, capitalism, and patriarchy responsible for women oppression and subjugation. So these are the two important criticisms on gender and development approach. So concluding this session, this lecture on gender and development concept. So gender and development approach is comprehensive. You will discuss when you are attempting a paper, you will say it's a comprehensive, holistic, aiming at address the root causes of gender inequality through systematic change, intersectional analysis, and the empowerment of our marginalized groups, marginalized genders. It seeks to transform the very structures that perpetuate inequality rather than simply integrating women into existing frameworks. Because this concept speaks generally about all genders, that there should not be any kind of marginalization of gender. So thank you so much for listening patiently to this lecture, and like and subscribe for more videos on gender studies in my subsequent lectures. So keep on following this channel. Thank you.